a lot is being said about the nominees and the snubs. So let's dive in. I'm going to rattle off just the Best Picture nominees real quick because I think that there were some usual suspects there and some films that we that were snubbed. So let's do this. So Best Motion Picture of the Year, the nominees are The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight.
Which is 8 out of a potential 10 that could be Best Picture nominees. I think for me, I'm really excited Mad Max got nominated. The fact that, it didn't do too hot at the Golden Globes sort of made me feel like it could be overlooked, worst case scenario. Yeah. But beyond that, I think it's looking at the movies that came out this past year, it's the usual crop of films that if you were to pick out the most likely Oscar contenders, those were the ones that were nominated. There weren't any big surprises. And also one of the things that's been talked about a lot is that for the second year in a row, all the Best Actor and Supporting Actor nominees are white.
Hashtag Oscars are white.
Right, but this is a year we had Creed, we had Straight Outta Compton, we had these movies that were getting a lot of buzz and could have been nominated, and the only person who ended up being nominated was Sylvester Stallone for Creed, I believe.
Yeah, and for his, and I mean, he'll probably win, and we're not going to do our Oscar predictions. That'll be a separate show down the line. We're going to make you wait for that. But there was a surprising number of snubs this year, and there were a lot of good movies across the board. But it is, without a doubt, it's just pure lily white. It's it's not even as white as that, okay?
And I think this is our annual reminder of, hey, the vast majority of Oscar voters are old white men.
Yeah.
So I think that the nominees definitely reflect that, but at the same time, there were a lot of people who were like, oh, you went for The Big Short for a lot of stuff. Could you have done Hateful Eight or Creed or some of these other things? They could have 10,
and I loved Creed. Creed was one of my favorite movies last year. That should have been nominated for Best Picture. I'm sure there's, I'm not a member of any of the local critics guilds or anything like that. So, but I hear that, Warner Brothers didn't really campaign for that, and they didn't realize until late that Mad Max was going to be a prestige picture for them. And I just want to point out earlier, I think I meant to say that this wasn't as white as the Oscar nominations. I'm probably messing with the camera by keep holding up a white
balancing
sheet.
It. But for the snubs.
But here are some more snubs in the Best Picture category. So yes, Straight Outta Compton, which I thought was really good.
This is for picture.
For Best Picture, but I didn't think it was Best Picture material. I thought it was a really good biopic, but it was pretty traditional. However, that being said, lesser films have been nominated for Best Picture, so I would have been fine with it getting nominated, but I wasn't. Creed wasn't nominated. That pissed me off because I love that movie. Hateful Eight didn't get nominated. Steve Jobs didn't get nominated, and there was a lot of talk about that movie just a few months ago, and then it tanked. And
steamrolled by Star Wars.
Steamrolled by Star Wars, although Star Wars didn't get nominated either.
We'll talk about that later.
Carol, which seemed like a big Oscar bait movie.
And both Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett were nominated for supporting actress and actress, respectively.
Yeah. And then, come on, Jim, read your own writing. All right. Ex Machina didn't get a Best Picture nomination. I can't say I'm too surprised, but disappointed. I would have liked that. It did get a screenplay nomination, though.
And special effects.
And special effects. And in those categories, actually, in special effects, it basically took the spot that could have gone at Jurassic World. And then for in screenplay, Aaron Sorkin didn't get a nomination for Steve Jobs. And everyone was just talking about Sorkin in the screenplay for Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. I do wonder if it wasn't sort of a little blowback against him. I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, he gave wonderful roles to people in that movie with his writing, but Tarantino didn't get nominated for Hateful Eight, and a lot of people thought that was, they'll just give him that.
Right.
And then there's some people saying that Amy Schumer should have gotten something for Trainwreck. That didn't happen.
In fact, I don't know that Trainwreck, I don't believe it got recognized.
I don't think it got anything. And then Best Animated Film, I think the big surprising snub there is the Peanuts movie. Because I think a lot of people thought it would get one. Well, that was in the bag. Fox, like with the Golden Globes, they really led with all these, I guess we'll talk about the Golden Globes too in a minute, as well, a little later in the podcast, because those were this weekend and the winners.
But I think like Anomalisa and Inside Out were the obvious choices for the animated film category. I wasn't too surprised about the snubs there.
Yeah.
People loved Inside Out. It was very original. I think we had some issues with A Good Dinosaur. I think the general consensus was it was a bit of a stumble for Pixar. I'm not too surprised that was left out.
Minions made a lot of money, but did anyone really like it?
Yeah, I think that you can, as with any film, you can have your box office crowd-pleasing film, and then you can have something that is critically well-received a little bit more. So with animated film, I wasn't too surprised with the snubs, but actor and actress, we were talking about the list of snubs, and it was like 3 times as long as could ever even be in the category.
People who were on every front runners list just 6 weeks ago, gone. Like Johnny Depp for Black Mass, nope. Will Smith for Concussion, nope. Tom Hanks, Bridge of Spies, nope. Idris for Best Supporting Actor, Idris Elba, Beast of No Nation, nope. Nobody from Hateful Eight outside of Jennifer Jason Leigh for Best Supporting Actress. Jason Mitchell, who we nominated in the Best Supporting Actor category for Straight Outta Compton for his performance as Eazy-E, nothing there. Michael B. Jordan, Creed, nope. Who else did we get? No Oscar Isaac for Ex Machina. No Alicia Vikander for Ex Machina, but she did get nominated for Danish Girl.
Which they loved, which Eddie Redmayne also was nominated for that.
And then I haven't seen it, but I'm developing this anti-Eddie Redmayne thing for some reason. I don't know why. That's another discussion for another day.
We need to be excited for him in Fantastic Beasts, and he's a fantastic actor. I'm okay with him getting everything that he deserves.
Michael Keaton, Spotlight. Nothing for him.
Yeah, they ended up going Mark Ruffalo for supporting actor.
I thought it was Rachel McAdams for Best Supporting Actress. She was fine in the movie, but I don't think it's really Best Supporting Actress quality. But Michael Shannon, 99 Homes, nothing. Jason Tremblay from Room.
The young actor in Room.
Yeah.
But Brie Larson was nominated.
Brie Larson was nominated. She'll probably win, but again, we'll get to that. Other actress snubs. Helen Mirren, Woman in Gold, nothing. Emily Blunt, Sicario, nothing. Again, Alicia Vikander. Jane Fonda, Youth. Everyone thought, oh, she's got it in the bag. Nope. Some of the actors who were nominated, though, surprised me. Like Matt Damon in The Martian, they were talking about a Best Actor nomination for him months ago when that movie came out. And then that movie got shut out at the SAG nominations. So the takeaway was, oh, okay, actors kind of
people within the community who would be voting at the Oscars might not.
But now you wonder, is this nomination a reaction to that? I mean, and some people are just really good at campaigning. Like Bryan Cranston, every actor loves him, and he's a great campaigner. But Trumbo, I'm sorry, but that's like acting with a capital A in that one. I thought it was too broad, And then same kind of with Mark Ruffalo and Spotlight. His was the one performance in that movie that kind of irritated me. It was a little too ticky.
Yeah, I feel like there are the two sides of it, right? And people can complain. A lot of these people, the vast majority of these people are well deserving of the nominations that they received. And I think talking about snubs isn't necessarily detracting about the people who were nominated. Yeah. But if you look at the nominees...
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Let's not take all the fun out of it.
But if you look at the nominees, it's a lot of performances that I look at both on page and on screen, and I'm like, this is a performance made specifically to be campaigning. Yeah, it's just Oscar bait, and it's so stereotypically exactly what that voting pool looks for.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so disappointing, and why I was glad that Mad Max got a Best Picture nomination and some others, is because you look at films, and for me personally, I'm always looking for something that's trying something different. And we were talking about Bridge of Spies earlier, where you're like, I like that movie, I was fine with that movie, but it was just doing the same old thing that old white male Oscar voters will vote for.
Well, I will say though, at the screenings that I went to for that, it was old white Oscar voters, both male and female, and they are. I mean, I think that the emphasis here is on old. I mean, there are a lot of members of the Academy who are very, very old, and I say this on my birthday. But I really think there might have to come a time where if you haven't worked in actually making movies for a while, like, you have to be retired out of the system. That way you do get a fresher kind of perspective, and maybe you actually see all the movies that are nominated.
And I think that's the thing that's missing with the Oscars is that fresher perspective. And the reason why we keep saying old white male is because there was that statistic that came out a couple of years ago that said, like, I think like 76% or something along those lines
reality of
the Oscar voters are old white men.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
she says as she looks at me.
Yeah, I say as I look off to the
On
side,
my
not looking at Jim. No, and I think
Did I mention it was my birthday?
in a time where we are getting these like new, fresh, innovative, really different in a world types of films, I personally, being a younger demographic than what the Oscar voters might be, am hoping to have that represented. And that's what we were talking about earlier is, like, you know, you see some of these people come through, and I think we will eventually see a shift and see some of that more experimental stuff be represented.
Yeah, like Tangerine was another one that was overlooked.
I'm glad that Anomalisa at least got animated film, though it might
But
lose
they
Inside
love,
Out.
I mean, the industry likes Charlie Kaufman. So, oddly enough, isn't that movie about an old white guy?
Yeah, well.
Even in
At least
animated
it's a different
form.
way to tell that story visually.
Now, some of the other snubs that that surprised me, at least, in the director category. Ridley Scott for The Martian. The Martian gets all these other ones. Ridley doesn't get nominated. Lenny Abramson, director of Room, essentially took his spot, if you will. Ridley nominated for the Directors Guild. So now we have another kind of thing where somebody might win the DGA award, but they don't win the Oscar. So Ridley getting snubbed really surprised me. Steven Spielberg, Bridge of Spies, again, they love him, but you know what? He's Spielberg. They're like, you've got a lot of, you're okay. Danny Boyle, Steve Jobs, Ryan Coogler, Creed, F. Gary Gray, Straight Outta Compton, Todd Haynes for Carol. Again, like, seems like an Oscar bait movie. He didn't get nominated. And then Dennis Villeneuve, I hope I'm saying your name right, for Sicario. You know, these are just some notable snubs there. Of all those names, which ones were you most shocked by getting snubbed?
I think Ridley and Coogler of the two. I think that Creed really came out and was a movie that was both critically acclaimed and, you know, it did well. It was a box office hit, a hit with fans. And then also for the same reasons you said, Ridley Scott, The Martian, that was the same sort of perfect meeting of two sides, and to see The Martian represented in so many other ways. And maybe Oscar voters were just frustrated about the way that Ridley has been going back and forth about the alien stuff, and they were like, we're taking away your nomination for that.
You know what? This is for Prometheus. No. Or to keep on the old white guy tip, they're like, look, if it's down between two old white guys who haven't gotten it yet, George Miller and Ridley, I'm sorry, we only have room for George. You know?
I am so happy that George Miller got that nomination, though, because there was a time.
I think his chances just shot up. But again, like, we'll get to our predictions. But you know, his biggest competitor just got knocked out of the race. So it's you know, it'd be like if I don't know, if you're running for office and let's say you were one of the guys, you know, like Ted Cruz and Trump drops out. You know, you're like, hey, I guess my stock just went up. So. Moving on to some other surprise snubs. Best song, See You Again from Furious 7, which I think a lot of folks just thought it was a given. Nope, didn't get it.
Maybe they just didn't want Vin Diesel singing it again on stage like he was doing at the movie awards and everything.
But they gave them, they gave Spector writings on the wall
Your
when
favorite
Chris
song
Carl
ever.
should have gotten it. Chris Carl gets snubbed. We're adding that here. Chris Carl, Spector, snub. We'll never forget. Never forget Chris Carl. That's really going to happen now.
I do like how
That's
we
up there
keep
with the
making it
UK
seem
guys
like...
with Fist Dan Stevens, where they want Dan Stevens to play Iron Fist, so they started this hashtag. And then one other notable snub, Going Clear, the documentary on Scientology, which, you know, got so much buzz, but I guess it's kind of like this year's Blackfish.
Yeah.
You know, where it's another much talked about documentary, and nope, nothing there. Overall, then, were you surprised at how well, say, something like The Revenant did with 12 nominations to get the most, and Mad Max with 10?
Mad Max it excites me, and I know that you adore The Revenant. You were a big fan of it, but I do think that is very much a movie made to be appreciated by other creatives.
It's the auteur movie, and you know what? It is an aloof movie. It does hold you at arm's length. I am surprised, frankly, that it's getting as much love as it is. I thought it would. I actually thought maybe it'd get overlooked a lot, but between this and the Golden Globes, I'm like, I guess they've decided this is going to be your big prestige picture that'll win.
I mean, I guess
year.
more Oscar and awards campaigns need to work the words raw bison liver into their pitches, but that really seemed to work.
How much
for
of
them.
this is all tied to, like, we just want to make sure Leo gets his Oscar, so we
Leo,
never
are
have
you
to
healthy?
hear about this.
Are you good? Yeah, I mean, again, we've been saying that we're gonna save our predictions for later down the road.
Tough to not kind of marry it up a little
Yeah,
bit.
but I do, again, not to beat a dead horse, but I would like to see.
There is a dead horse in The Revenant, so it actually.
I tie it all together, yeah.
There's a bit of a beating of the dead horse,
not
too.
to beat a massive vengeful bear to death, but I do.
I love Jonah Hill's
I
bit.
do, yeah. I do want to see some of the things that really excited me as a consumer, like Mad Max and some of those other films, be recognized instead of it just going to the obvious choices, which we've seen in previous years.
Now, some of the other stuff that happened this week with awards was obviously, well, actually, before I say that, let's talk about Star Wars not getting.
Yes.
Star Wars did not get a Best Picture nomination, and you know what? Good. It didn't deserve one. I'm sorry. I really enjoyed the movie, but it didn't deserve a Best Picture nomination.
Yeah, I think that movie is like exactly what fans want, and it is an awesome movie. It is so much fun. It is innately rewatchable. The new actors are all fantastic. I love what they did with those characters.
It's a lot of fun. I loved it.
But it's not an Oscar movie, and I
No.
think like the VFX stuff and editing and below the line stuff that it did get nominated for, all very fair. Harrison Ford was not going to get nominated as Han Solo for this movie. J.J. Abrams wasn't getting nominated for directions. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, right, when the Oscars made the shift to expand the Best Picture pool back after the whole Dark Knight fiasco, and everyone was like, how did this not get nominated? The idea, I think, from we readers' perspective was, oh, great, they're going to acknowledge more of these like big tentpole fan favorite movies. And no, it just fit in a lot more of the traditional Oscar movies.
Well, it's also, too, not like, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say, but I think because of that, you get stuff like Mad Max and The Martian making their way in.
Yeah.
This was not a year for Star Wars. Who knows, maybe Rogue One, maybe Episode 8, like maybe those are going to be the movies that are worthy of it. Maybe they're just going to give it to Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9 like they did with Peter Jackson for Return of the King. But
I think that
year.
it's also, I mean, it's just, you can't help but kind of shake your head, again, to get back to the Oscar so white thing, but they've really made an effort to be more diverse, like the campaigning of it all, like you get Chris Rock to be a host, and it turns out like even freaking lily are whiter than ever. And
that was the thing, like last year it had been many years since there had been not a single person of color nominated, and now it's been 1 year.
They're like, we can't have Oscar so white trending again this time, and you're like, damn it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even think it's like a PC culture thing, but there are just so many incredible actors out there. There are so many incredible performances.
Well, I'm sure Chris Rock will just, not say a thing about it.
Yeah, the same thing that Neil Patrick Harris said last year, where he was like, the best and whitest, sorry, brightest in our industry. I don't know. I think that part of creating media is creating something that reflects the world that we live in, and that's, I think, part of that social consciousness that has come out of that. So it's a little disheartening to see like the most prestigious movie ceremony not being on board with that. Yeah. People can do whatever the hell they want, but
Yeah. Well, that's the perspective of two white people.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's hear from you in the comments below. Were you surprised by any of the snubs, or surprised by anybody who got nominated? Let us know. Really curious what your guys' thoughts are on this year's Oscars race.